Hey Heather,
Hey Mike, how are you?
good. You're looking good today.
Well, thank you. So are you. How you doing? What's new?
This is just how I always look. Um, oh, let's see. I'm basically fine. Let's see. The last live stream was November 30th, and I have not left Clark County or Las Vegas. Looks like that whole time. I've done day hikes but yeah, it looks like this Christmas break I'm not going to go anywhere, sadly. So.
They have you done that Christmas light thing that they have at the baseball park?
No, that's a good idea though.
I heard that's really fun. And then they have some kind of scavenger hunt or something where you look for stuff. It sounded pretty fun.
Oh, really? I'm good at scavenger hunts.
I thought you might like that.
I take games very competitively, especially if there's some kind of physical element to them.
I think that's why I enjoy doing escape rooms with you so much.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't feel I really shine in escape rooms because usually there's somebody in the group who really loves them and has done them before, and they become the alpha male and want to do everything. And I kind of feel like I'm just riding this person's coattails, and you know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
Well, I thought you did very well and you shined very well, very well.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm overdue to do one. I haven't done one since before. No, I did one in Santa Barbara last summer, not this year's the summer of 2022. But before that, you really have to go back. Anyway, let's get on with things.
Sounds
Um,
good.
I have a couple book reviews.
Ooh.
Oh, before I get to that, I performed my first wedding recently. That was
No.
on December 9th. And let me show you something. So, I am an ordained minister in the
Ah,
Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
yes.
And so, a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a while just mentioned to me that he was getting married. And I said something along the lines of, "Did you know I'm an ordained minister and I would be happy to perform your ceremony?" And he and his fiance seemed kind of interested. And then they said, "Let us talk about it." And then the next day they said, "We're in." And I wasn't kind of expecting them to say yes, but I was pleasantly surprised. And so to do a wedding in Nevada, you can either do like as many as you want for a certain period of time, or you can get, for a cheaper and simpler process, you can go one at a time. So I just got the license to perform one, and I had to take an online class, which was really easy. And I think I paid like $55 and filled out a form. And I had to get two people, which were the two people getting married, to make a statement and get it notarized then I'm a person of good moral character. But it was not required that I be an ordained minister in Nevada. But anyway, that was great. And I'm proud to, add that experience to, my lifetime resume.
That is so exciting.
Yeah. So I don't know. I forgot why I told that story, but yeah, that was interesting. Okay. I wanted to give a couple book reviews. Um, so this book, my friend who coincidentally is the one getting married, he has a very impressive gambling book collection. Not as good as mine, but pretty good. And he has this book here, Winning Without Counting by Stanford Wong, that not only do I not have this book, I never even knew of this book. So it's very out of print. Copies on eBay go for like $150. But, you know, uh, it's about what it says. It's about various ways of beating blackjack without counting. A lot of it is devoted to card bending, like it used to be that the dealer would actually bend the cards to peek for a blackjack. And so if a card got bent, one way, it was more likely to be a 10 or an ace. Anyway, but dealers don't check that way anymore, so that's kind of a waste. But one thing I was kind of surprised by is there was a whole section on what I call shot taking, which Stanford Wong did. I was very surprised. I am ethically against shot taking. So it's kind of surprised that he writes about doing that. And he also writes about ways to cheat. He says he doesn't personally cheat, but he talks about building relationships with dealers who will, cheat and give you good cards. Anyway, so that's what the book is about. I like all Stanford Wong's books, so I don't agree with the morality of some of the plays in that book, but it is what it is. And somebody, I think it was on a live stream, somebody asked me if I read Billy Walters' book. So this is Billy Walters' book. If you be careful buying it online, because there's a fake Billy Walters book out there, but this is basically an autobiography that he wrote, and I'm still only about 20% of the way into it, but so far it's really good, and he's a very good writer, and it's very, very engaging. It's hard to put it down. So yeah, so I'd recommend that book. And by the way, I forgot, my new book is out, the 3rd edition. Here you go. It's purple. There it is. Proud to say that's out. So please, don't have to take the question anymore of when my book will be out. It's so nice to not get asked that anymore and have to ask my publisher that, because I'm sure.
Did you have a party?
No. It was
good excuse
too, but just due to certain reasons I won't get into, I did not.
Okay. Now, Stanford Wong's book, is that basically a book for advantage players?
Yep. It's all about gaining an advantage in blackjack without counting. And like I said, like if one main method that's not really doable anymore is, let's say that this is the dealer's hand and he has a 10 up. So it used to be that the dealer would bend the cards like this to see the underneath card. And you can see how that kind of caused a bend in the 10. So let's say later this card is upside down and you can kind of see this bend going down. So that would indicate that it's probably a 10 or an ace. So let's say the dealer this happens later and you can kind of tell the down card is bent down, that there's a 4 and 5 chance that this card is a 10. So that would influence how you play certain situations, and definitely card bending can give you an advantage. And I have no problem with that, but nobody, like I said, people use mirrors or digital readers now, so it's not really a valid play anymore. But yeah, so, okay, I also wanted to give a rant and a rare praise. Which should I start out with, Heather?
Let's start out with the rant, and then that way we can end on a good note.
Okay, so the rant is against Airbnb. So as you know, as I've said many times on the show, there's going to be a total eclipse of the sun on April 8th, 2024. And I'm saying prepare for this in advance over like a year ago. So a lot of hotels release the rooms exactly a year in advance. So I got something on Airbnb like 15 months in advance in Waco, Texas. And I thought I was all squared away, got a good house at a nice price. And then the day before the annular eclipse, which was last month, they cancel it with a frivolous reason, as they said, we don't do short-term rentals anymore. And this really got me steamed. I have been a private business owner since 1997, and I have never taken one class, read one book in operating a business. But the most important thing, in my opinion, in running a business, as well as life in general, is that you keep your word. If you make a bad deal, tough, you stick to that deal. I have eaten it many times in pricing game analysis that turned out to be way more difficult than I thought, but that's my fault. That is on me, and I don't beg for extra money. So I tend to think that what happened is this house owner is they they heard about all this excitement about the annular eclipse, and somebody basically in the private market offered more money than I was paying, so they kicked me out. And I complained about this to Airbnb, and I can't really blame Airbnb except for the fact that this can happen. Just let that serve as a warning. I hope that Airbnb penalized this host, as they call them. But anyway, fortunately, I found another place in Waco, Texas. But yeah, just be warned that homeowners have the right to kick you out, and they don't need to give a reason, or it can be a
That
frivolous reason.
that really stinks. I'm sorry
Yep.
you had to go through that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the praise?
Yes, let's hear the praise.
Okay, the praise is for CarMax. I never thought I would be singing the praises of a used car dealership, but our car, you may remember my silver car, um, and it needed a lot of work for the exhaust system to pass a smog test. And I would have had to dump like $8,000 into it. And when they were done, I would still have a car that was worth less than $8,000. So I decided to say no to the repairs, and the gentleman with the BMW dealership recommended I go to CarMax. He said, I've heard they're being really generous. So they were conveniently right across the street. So I took it there, and I asked for an estimate, and they said, yep, just give us the keys in like 1 hour and we'll call you when we're done. So I said, great, here are the keys. Sure enough, like an hour later, they said, we're done. And so I went to the counter, and they had me sit down, and they handed me a piece of paper that had an offer that was way more than I was expecting. And it was a number that I was very happy with. And frankly, they probably didn't know the extent of the exhaust system problems. But it was great to get a hassle-free estimate so quickly. And they said, you have a week to think about it. And they said, if you accept our offer, come back with both sets of keys and the title. So I came back the next day with both sets of keys and the title, and it took them like half an hour to get the paperwork put together. And then they just had me sign here, sign here, sign here. And they handed me a check, and I went my merry way. So it was a generous offer, and the whole process was very streamlined and professional. So big thumbs up to CarMax, especially if you're selling them a car, perhaps not so much buying them. I have looked at their used car prices, and they're probably a bit higher than average, but they at least offer some kind of a warranty with all their cars. So there you go. There is my praise.
Well, I'm glad that worked out for you.
Yep. So yeah, we have a new vehicle. So yeah. So the previous car, I'll just say it was a BMW, and happy to get rid of that car. That car, and maybe it was the BMW dealership in Las Vegas on Sahara, but anytime you took it in for an oil change, they found $1,000 worth of other stuff to do. And especially do not get a diesel. I thought I was going to save money at the pump, but I think diesel prices actually surpass gas prices, and with this, and as you know, in Nevada and in most states, you have to pass smog tests, and there's very few places in Vegas where you can even get a smog test for a diesel car, and the parts are hard to find, and yeah, so there you go. I'm getting tired of talking about that. Shall we get to some gambling questions?
Yeah, let's do that. Do you have anything from the forum?
I'll have to check, but why don't we start with the peanut gallery?
Okay. So our very first question comes from Thomas, who says, What happens if a casino game reveals an exploitation, like blackjack card counting? The casinos like change the rules, and now most deal like 6 to 8 decks and shuffle like a third of the way through. What are some other things that happen if the casino game reveals an exploitation?
I'm not sure what is meant by an exploitation.
Like you notice something that a player could take advantage of.
Okay, so a way the player can exploit it. It's very funny. As I was before the show, somebody asked about card counting and live dealer online casinos, and what I wrote there was that casinos do test for that. They would not tell me exactly how, but it would not be difficult to look for a correlation between a player's bet size and the count. And I know a lot of professional gamblers who make their living playing online, and you never seem to hear any of them talking about card counting. It's always about, or it's almost always about bonus hunting. Sometimes it's about promotion abuse. So
Okay.
yeah,
So
I don't think that card counting in online casinos is a viable play.
what about in physical land-based
Oh,
casinos?
sure. Yeah. It's still going on. It's not as big of an advantage play as it used to be because casinos are better at catching counters. But nope, nevertheless, it's absolutely still going on.
Yeah. So I guess it's like a take it as you go type of a thing.
Yeah, well, advantage play has always been about keeping up with the times.
Yeah.
There's always new plays coming along, and you want to be in on them early before people like me start writing about them.
So by the time you start writing about them, it's probably already too late.
Well, I like to. I wouldn't say that it's too late. And looking at variable state slot machines is a big one right now, and it's getting to be. We're past the best point of that bell curve, but there's definitely still machines out there, especially in smaller markets, and much of my book is devoted to that. So
And you
in
guys
my
can find
book,
this book on Amazon too, by the way.
yep. So a whole chapter on vulturing slots, and it's a big chapter. It goes through these games: how to beat Cashman Bingo, Rich Little Piggies, Scarab, Golden Jungle Grand, Hexbreaker 3, Magic of the Nile, Ocean Magic, Golden Egypt, Regal Riches, Star Goddess, Buffalo Ascension, and Buffalo Link.
Okay. So go
Okay.
get his book.
So, yep, $20. It'll tell you how to beat lots of different slot machines.
Awesome. Okay, so the next one is more of a comment, and this is from Baccarat Kingmaker. Salute to you, the best of the best program leaders.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next question comes from Eric777. Can you talk about the variance between 3-hand, 5-hand, and 10-hand video poker?
I have a huge page on my website about that. It goes through the covariance between hands. So the standard deviation per hand on the draw is a function of the variance of just one hand, and the total number of hands times -1 times some other constant. And those figures are on my website, but it's a big topic, and I don't want to go there and just rattle off information. But yeah, go to Wizard of Odds Video Poker, and I think it's under Advanced Topic, and then it's called something like Covariance in Multi-Hand Video Poker.
Awesome. How many pages do you think your website has?
It has a lot. My website it started in 97, so it's 26 years worth of my life. Um, and I have covered, I mean, someday I should do a count of this, but just hundreds of casino games, probably not to 1,000 yet, but probably around, I don't know, 300, plus numerous side bets, um, all kinds of side topics, like the one I just said about covariance in video poker. And
For
perfectly honest with you, the organization of the site could be better. So sometimes it's hard to find particular topics, but yeah, but I'm sure between all the side bets and everything, there's well over 1,000 separate pages.
Yeah, at least. I mean, your website must be thousands of pages of content. And if you need to find something, that's what the search function is for.
Yeah, the Google search function really works pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, so our next question comes from Northern Jim, who says, at a blackjack table that has a CSM, I'm blanking. Oh, a continuous shuffle machine. My mind went blank there for a second. So on a blackjack table that has a continuous shuffle machine, but where the dealer piles up over a deck's worth of cards in the discard tray before putting them back in the shuffler, can aces and fives work?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Any card counting system can work. And you're not getting much penetration if you're only getting like one deck into 6 decks. So it may not be enough to have an advantage, but it'll help a little bit. Um, you might look at this more so in a double deck game. But yeah, yeah. So my short answer is it will help, but it may not be enough to overcome the house advantage.
Yeah, a single deck and single deck and a double deck are so much better when it comes to card counting. As dealers, we would kind of laugh at people who would card count on a continuous shuffle machine. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, so our next question comes from Thomas, and he says, "What is the process for a game change? What if the game is really popular, like blackjack? Do casinos have the right to not let you play if the player has an advantage for the game?"
Sure. There are lots of casinos in Vegas where I'm not allowed to play blackjack. They said I could play anything else, but just not blackjack. And they're allowed to do that, and I respect that. So yeah, absolutely. Now, there's some jurisdictions like Atlantic City where they cannot bar you for advantage play, like card counting. So they take other measures, like if they see you, they will just shuffle as soon as you raise your bet, things like that. But yeah, absolutely. Here in Nevada, they can bar you selectively from certain games. And by the way, I recently found out that I am barred from all table games at all MGM owned casinos. Doesn't really
No
bother me
way.
very much because I already knew I was on their um, poop list, shall we call it. But it's for tournament advantage play. I'm very good with table game tournaments, and I used to play a lot of, playing a lot of theirs. And, they eventually realized that I was not a profitable player to get all these generous tournament invitations. So, I have no hard feelings about that. They didn't need
So
to ban me from table games, but I don't really care.
So basically for Christmas, I need to get you a wig and I need to get you like sunglasses, and we need to get some new clothes for you. Maybe a hat.
Oh, that would be fun, but there's still plenty of casinos in Vegas where I can play, but I just yeah, I just am not as motivated to play as I used to be.
Makes sense. To go back to the question real quick, as from a dealer's point of view, there is no process to change a procedure. It is good for all casino dealers to follow all procedures at all times because that's good for game security and table protection. However, a floor supervisor, pit manager, shift manager, they all have the authority to change any procedure they want at any time for any reason.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to another question.
Next one is from Joe, who says, here we go. To maximize rollover at a typical casino, given a $500 bankroll, do you play dollar credits at 9.5 jacks or better, or 25-cent credits at 8.5 jacks or better?
Okay, let me digest this. To maximize rollover at a typical casino, given a $500 bankroll, do you play $1 credit? Hmm. So the way I interpret this question is he has a $500 bankroll, and which game will give him the most longevity? So with the better pay table, you have basically fewer units you're dealing with, and just through variance, you may go bust. Yeah, if you really had a lot of time on your hand, but only a $500 bankroll, you probably would get more hands in on average at the 8-5 game, because in the short run, variance is more significant than house advantage. But then again, I'm a real slave to good rules. So I don't know exactly why you're asking, but I would still play. You'll still have 100 units at the dollar game, which I think will go a long way, and hopefully won't be the end of your life if you lose $500. So again, without, if I might make an Ask the Wizard question out of this one because it's mathematically interesting. But again, I think the correct answer is just making a educated guess. Is you're probably going to be able to play more at that 8-5 game, but again, you're going to have you're not going to have much of a chance to win anything big. So but again, I don't know why you're asking, but it's really difficult for me to recommend the game with the worst pay table. So I think the right answer is the 8-5, but I would still play the 9-5. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here.
Okay. So our next question comes from Paul, who says, are off-strip slot payback percentages favorable enough to visit them? And would I generally notice that my money would last longer?
Yeah, this kind of ties into the last question well. So yes, absolutely. The casinos off strip have better video poker and better slots as well, better Keno. But will you really notice the difference in the short run? Probably not. And probably for just like playing for 2 hours, it's probably not worth the time and expense to get to a way off strip casino. Now, what I might submit for your consideration is going to one, like I like the Tuscany. I haven't really looked at how good of a value they are lately, but there is a locals casino that's not that far away. But I do also really like the Gold Coast and the Orleans and the Palace Station. Those are not very far off the strip. So those offer good value, and they're also not far from the strip. So, and furthermore, once you start playing at these places, you might like them. You might like the free parking, and the restaurants are cheaper. Everything is cheaper. I find they're maybe not as smoky. So yeah, you really have to weigh the better pay tables against the inconvenience. But yeah, but all things considered, I'd recommend the off-strip casinos, not just for the better video poker, but that I find them better for lots of reasons.
Okay. Our next question comes from Northern Jim, who says on slots that have premium play, example Black Knight, one can buy 5 bonus spins for either 25 wilds stick until they win, or 15 units for no sticky wilds. Is that a good value? And if so, which is the best?
Okay, I'm not familiar with this particular machine, but with there a lot of machines, you can bet more to enable a special feature like Ocean Magic comes to mind, where you basically just get more bubbles if you pay extra. And you also see this with a lot of video poker games, like, that if you pump up your bet, you get some kind of a feature like random multipliers. And as somebody who has worked with a lot of the companies that make games, the philosophy is that if the player bets more, they should be rewarded for it. So as a strong rule of thumb, you should be paying the extra fee for these features. It may only bump up the return by a little bit, and you may actually lose more because you're betting more money. But yeah, the short answer is that it is slightly a better value to do the premium pay feature, as you put it.
Okay. So our next question comes from Paul Andrews, who says, what does the casino need to do to change payback percentage in Nevada? Is there something they could change frequently?
All right. So this is the question I get a lot is the general rule is they need a slot technician to open up the machine, and they need to take out one chip and put in a different chip. These are called EEPROM chips. EEPROM stands for erasable program. I forgot what it stands for. Maybe somebody can put it in the comments. But all they need to do is physically is take out one chip and put in a different chip. And this chip will say what, shall we say in video poker, what the pay table is. If it's the slot machine, what symbols are on the real strips. And the machine reads this chip to determine, what game you're playing. And so that's all they need to do physically. Now, they do need to report this change to the gaming control board. I've heard this used to be done with sending them a fax, but not many people use faxes anymore. I imagine they have a website where you can do this electronically somehow. Now, it's probably still a bit of a fuss to declare this change to gaming, which is the reason the casinos do not change their settings very often. However, there's something called server-based slot machines now where this can be done remotely. The casino still does have to report the change to the gaming control board, but the machine has to be unplayed for something like 15 minutes before they can change it. So there's kind of a conspiracy theory that casinos can change the odds of a slot machine while you're actually playing it. In theory, this is true with server-based slot machines, but like I said, there is a protection built into the system that they can't do it unless the game has not been played for a certain period of time that I don't remember exactly, but it's approximately 15 minutes.
Okay. And then Chuck says that EEPROM is erasable, programmable, read-only memory.
Thank you, Chuck. That does ring a bell.
Ready for the next question?
Yep.
Okay. So our next question is from Thomas. And Thomas says, what do you and Michael think of the new hybrid craps tables? One dealer and stickman with real dice, but electronical betting.
I've only played one time, and frankly, I didn't find it as enjoyable. I think touching the chips is part of the experience for me, and I find the energy level at these games is not as high. Nevertheless, I can't blame casinos for trying to cut costs and introducing these, and I predict we'll see more of them. So that is my opinion. How about you, Heather?
I'm not a fan of them. I feel the same way you do. I want to touch the chips. I want to have a craps table. Plus, a big craps table. It's social. You want a lot of people on the table. These electronic tables are smaller, and there's not as much excitement. It feels like just not my cup of tea.
Okay, I think a lot of the tables are the same size, but maybe some of them are slower. Okay, let me go
Yeah.
to my forum to see what questions we have there.
Okay.
Okay. Looks like it's just some comments.
That makes it easy.
Yeah. Yeah, these are more like suggestions of things to talk about that I probably should have gone through before the show. But yeah, let's get back to the peanut gallery.
Okay, so our next question is from Paul Andrews, who says, we've all heard that Las Vegas airport slots have the worst odds, but are there any facts backing this up?
Oh, absolutely. Their video poker and video keno are terrible. And this is easily quantifiable. Again, in my book, I have a section where you can look up all the common Game King Keno pay tables, and it will show you the return. And the same thing with video poker. So if you don't know the difference between a good pay table and a bad pay table for either game, it's all right here in my book. And so yeah, the Vegas airport is as bad as it gets. But I'll say something good about the Vegas airport is it's good for slot vulturing. Um, People leave those slot machines like the ones I listed before in good states a lot more than you see in casinos in general. So for the slot vultures out there, I would consider that if you're in the Vegas airport, plan to spend some time there and vulture the slots a little bit. Like if you're leaving Vegas, get there early and vulture for a few hours. And I asked another vulture about this, and he said, yeah, it's well known that the Vegas airport is great for vulturing. And sometimes people will buy refundable tickets just to get past security and vulture for a while. And then they ask for a refund on their ticket and leave.
I bet that's easier too than a casino because the eye in the sky actually looks for this, and then security will stop you in a casino. Whereas in the airport, I bet nobody really cares.
No, my friend who said what I just said, that it's vulturing is good at the airport. He says that security there is really tough.
Really?
Yeah. That's just what he said. He could be wrong, but
that's good to know because I am not in the airport all the time, so I don't know.
Yeah, I hate starting sentences with "I heard," but sometimes that's all I've got. So, all right. Anyway, let's go on to another question.
Next up is from Technics, who says, I was in Vegas recently and tried to find jacks or better video poker at 2 casinos, but with no luck. Mainly had a bonus poker variance. Are casinos not offering this game because it's too good?
Yeah, this is another question that got asked on Wizard of Vegas recently, perhaps by you. It came up in my review of the Durango, and I listed some video poker games that they had on a Game King. and it did not have Jacks or Better. And somebody said, with 12 different games, why isn't Jacks or Better one of them? And casinos just don't offer it much anymore. And I speculate that the main reason is it just doesn't get played well, or it's not very profitable. Why is that, you might ask? I think that recreational players are attracted to the bigger wins on games like Double Double Bonus. Like, look at Double Double Bonus. You have all these big wins for four of a kinds, and it's all paid for by just reducing the two pair from a 2 to a 1. But that does not make Double Double Bonus a better value, because in Jacks or Better, most of the money you get back is from a 2 pair. So cutting that from 2 to 1 is you're cutting the most lucrative hand by 50%. And you don't see the four of a kinds that much. So, but nevertheless, I just have friends and relatives, and the recreational players who like video poker like those big numbers, and it doesn't matter what hand they're for. They are just attracted to them like a moth to a flame. So I could see that recreational players may not play Jacks or Better as much. And also, a lot of low-level video poker players may have only learned the Jacks or Better strategy, so that's all they play. And so for that reason, if Jacks or Better is especially getting played by skilled players, it would not make as much money. So that is my answer to that one.
Okay. Technic says that he has also seen a full regulation size electronic computerized craps table that has a glass bottom surface rather than a felt. Have you ever seen one with a glass surface?
Yeah, I think most of them are like that. I didn't know they were glass. I thought it was plastic. But yeah, I've seen that a lot.
John says that he has noticed that there are fewer buffets in Las Vegas. And do you think it's smart or not?
Yeah, certainly after COVID, a lot of casinos got rid of their buffets. And I tended to think they didn't cry over losing them. I think that buffets were not terribly profitable on a per square foot basis. I think casinos kind of looked at them as something that they had to offer to get people to come. But when everyone just started getting rid of them, I think a lot of casinos thought, me too. I'd never liked that buffet anyway. So as long as players aren't expecting it, we're not going to offer it. And good idea or bad idea, I don't see casino financial statements and things like that. Furthermore, they don't really know about the players that don't come because there's no buffet. Nobody says, I didn't go to your casino because you don't have a buffet anymore. They just don't know. But I tend to think that if I ran a casino, I would not really want a buffet. Again, they don't make a big profit, and furthermore, people are just more conscious now about safety, and I think that they probably, if there's ever another, there's still things like the flu and RSV and stuff like that out there. And I think that those kinds of things are probably more easily spread in a buffet kind of environment. So, and, as much as when I first moved to Vegas, I was like really gung ho on buffets. I was still, it used to be part of the Vegas experience to hit the buffet. And I, including for me. So I ate a lot of buffets when I first moved to Vegas, and I loved it. But generally through the years, the quality of the casino buffets got worse and the lines got longer. Like the line for the Red Rock buffet was just ridiculously long. And so personally, I don't really miss them anymore.
The World Buffet has an incredibly long line too.
Which one is that?
The one at the Rio. Remember when it opened in the 90s and it was all big?
Yeah, I like that one. Plus, yeah, the Rio had two buffets. the
The
World
seafood
Buffet,
one.
and then there was a seafood buffet.
Yep.
And yeah,
Are there any buffets that you miss?
I did like the Red Rock Buffet, and for a while I had president status there before they put me on their no mail list, and I lost my status. But yeah, it used to be that not only did I have line cutting privileges, but 75% off. So I ate at the Red Rock Buffet a lot, and that was a nice buffet. They had like the big shrimp, and for dinner they had a lot of high-end items. The Rampart Casino still has a buffet, but I don't especially like that one. They just do not have the premium stuff there. But yeah, which casinos do have buffets? So there's the Rampart.
All of
Um,
the off-strip casinos, I think, have buffets,
the
like the
Suncoast got
stations.
rid of it. The Red Rock got rid of it.
Oh, okay.
No, I think in general, most places got rid of their buffets, and there's hardly any left anymore.
That shows you how often I go to buffets.
Yeah, that would, yeah, that would make a good Ask the Wizard question that I'll have to do some research on.
So our next one is a statement, and Technic says that he has also had a great experience at CarMax.
Yay
And
for
then Mauricio.
Mauricio
Oh, you do that well.
Guarnieri. I love to say that.
Just dropping by to say thank you for your new book. Followed the advice last weekend and got my first royal flush on $1 video poker. It was amazing.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome. Glad to hear that.
Yay. And then Baccarat Kingmaker says that you do have an excellent book. So
Thank you very much.
go to Amazon or Huntington Press, buy the book. Got to do that. Okay. So our next one is from Ray, who says, do you have any thoughts on Washington state slot machines, which apparently use scratch ticket style lotteries? Any chance for advantage play, and don't play if someone next to you just hit a jackpot? Yes, no? What do you think?
Okay, this summer I went to Washington and I stayed at two different casinos, the Point Casino and what's the one by Anacortes? Let me look that up. I think it was called the Squamish or something like that.
I have no idea. No clue.
Casinos. Yeah, the Swinomish. And let me come back here. Okay. Both those casinos had what seemed to me like ordinary slot machines to me. Now, it may be that tribal casinos are allowed to have no nonsense class 3 slot machines, but maybe some other places have more restrictive rules. I almost tend to think that it sounds more like you're talking about Oregon than Washington. Okay. So I'm not an expert, but I will say that I think that the tribal casinos in Washington have normal slot machines, but in Oregon, and as well as some other states, things get really kind of weird where video poker in the way that it's played in Las Vegas is not allowed, where they actually use a electronic representation of a deck of cards and the odds are natural. I believe that in Oregon that it must be basically a pull tab game where the outcome is predestined, and they try to skin these games to look like video poker, but they're really not. You see this in Germany too, by the way, is these fake video poker machines. So just because a machine looks like video poker, it doesn't necessarily mean it really is. So in environments where there's not very much gambling, like, shall we say, not very much is legal, they may try to work their way around the law to make what's called a pull tab game look like video poker. So that's about the best I can do with that. So yeah, I can't think of anything else to say.
What so if a player is like playing these slot machines, is there something that they could look for to determine if it's real versus fake?
That's a good question. In general, like if it's a Game King, I would say that if it's something by IGT, it's probably legitimate. Um, and you can also maybe go through the rule screens. And I I would like to think that the rule screens would have to say somewhere if it's not a legitimate game of skill. Um, so that might be a good place to start. You might even ask wherever you're at, like say it's like in Oregon. I don't know why Oregon is such a weird state. Sorry to anyone who lives in Oregon, but they like lots of bowling alleys there and pizza restaurants have a little room that just have a small number of slot machines in them. And these are kind of the weird games. And it's just kind of a coincidence I'm wearing an Oregon shirt. Um, so, yeah, wherever you are, know what the law is and right, ask around and read those rule screens. And that's about as far as I can take that one.
One more question. Does it matter if someone next to you hits a jackpot while you're playing?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. These machines are all independent, and it's kind of a myth that these machines like communicate to each other, and if one hits a jackpot, they will tell their friends nearby, "Hey, you better tighten up for a little bit. I just hit a jackpot." No, they don't do that.
Have you ever heard of a jackpot hitting right next to a jackpot like at the same time?
I'm sure it happens. I mean, especially playing like high limit games. It's happened to me lots of times where I hit a jackpot on one machine, and while I'm waiting for a hand pay, I hit a jackpot there. So then I go to a third game, and so by the time an attendant comes by, I might be waiting for 2 or 3 jackpots.
You're so lucky. You're like the
No,
luckiest
but if
person
you're
I've
playing
ever
say, at the
known.
$5 level, this can happen, and especially if they're running slow paying jackpots. In my opinion, the threshold for a hand pay should be way more than $1,200.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
yep.
Okay, next one is from Serge, who says, I was playing roulette at my local casino. I was betting 18 numbers on the inside, and the dealer would wait for me to place my hand and then pick up the ball, hold on to it, look at the wheel, and then spin. I lost 9 times in a row. Can a dealer time the wheel to make me lose? It feels very suspicious.
I don't know what you were betting. So it's hard to do a calculation on 9 losses in a row. But I get asked a lot if dealers can steer the ball towards winning numbers. I'm very skeptical of it. Maybe if they did a really slow spin, maybe some of them could, but they're not supposed to do slow spins. And Heather, as a dealer, you could probably address this better than I can. But if dealers could do this, they would be steering the ball to cause their friends to win. And it would happen all the time. But you don't really hear about this happening very much. Most dealer cheating happens in blackjack where they steer the good cards to their friends. So yeah, I'm very skeptical about dealers' ability to control the outcome of the spin. But I'd welcome your thoughts on it too, Heather.
Whether or not the dealer can actually hit the number, if they are trying to hit the number, the dealer will look at the wheel. And it's part of the casino's policies and procedures that when you're dealing roulette, you are not allowed to look at the wheel. So if your dealer isn't looking at the wheel and he's looking at the layout like how he should be looking at the layout, he's not doing anything. He's not doing. There's nothing he can do.
Yeah, maybe he's just
Um,
giving players sufficient time to make their bets.
And that's what happens as a roulette dealer. You kind of get into a groove, you get into like a rhythm, and you just do the rhythm over and over and over again. And then you tend to hit the same numbers over and over again because you're doing that rhythm or groove. And it's not anything subconscious. It's just you always have this many players. It takes you this long to muck. It takes you this long to snap. You snap the same way every time. And then you just do it so often, you just get into a routine or a habit or groove.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Let's get in some more questions.
So our next question is from Jack Ace, who says, what are your impressions of Fontainebleau and Durango so far? Fontainebleau?
Well,
I think he means
yeah, the
Fontainebleau.
Fontainebleau that finally opened. We had 2 casino openings here in Vegas in December, and I write about both of them in my newsletter. And the newsletter this week, should have come out today, is part 1 of my Fontainebleau review. But I have the
Ooh.
whole review in my forum at Wizard of Vegas. But here are my quick thoughts. The Durango has a lot of windows, and it's very brightly lit, and it has a lot of the tile is white, and the carpeting color is kind of like an earth tone brown. So it's not your typical like loud, obnoxious Vegas casino. It seems like it's a very pleasant, relaxing place. And I didn't actually play there, but the look of it seemed like a calming, enjoyable place to play. And the Fontainebleau, finally that opened. I was there last Sunday, I think it was, and or Saturday, I don't remember. That's quite big. The gaming rules were a bit on the stingy side, and very like an enormous high ceiling. This also had white marble, but the carpeting was blue. You don't see a lot of blue in casinos. This one too didn't feel like your typical like loud, obnoxious Vegas type casino, but it also didn't seem like the Durango. It seemed more of like a sterile, kind of like an airport kind of a feel. And the Fontainebleau is, while the casino is open, a lot of the restaurants and stores still are not. So it still has kind of a not like fully finished kind of feel to it. But the place was immaculately clean, and it's the second most expensive casino in Vegas. The first being Resorts World, by the way. So yeah, there's my quick reviews. But again, check my newsletter for my full Durango review and part 1 of my Fontainebleau review, which got published today.
And how do they get your newsletter for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so if you're not, you should be a subscriber to the Wizard of Odds, but if you're not, on the main page, there is a box at the bottom that says subscribe to the Wizard's newsletter. And if you click on the word newsletter, it takes you to a list of newsletters going back years and years. So you can just read them right there.
Cool. And then as far as my impressions go, when a casino opens, it's great for dealers to get a job full-time with benefits and vacation right away instead of having to wait a couple years, which is typical in most casinos. So that's my little 2 cents for when a casino opens. That's the first thing I'm thinking of.
That is a good little tip there.
Thank you. Okay, so our next question is from Ray, who says, do you have any thoughts on the Washington State slot machines, which apparently use scratch ticket style? Did we do that one?
This is similar to one that I just did.
Okay, so we just, okay.
One question on Washington slots is enough for one show.
Okay. Can you be banned from a casino for complaining?
I complained I got banned. I tend to think that there was more to it than just complaining. Um, um, yeah, I'm like I said, I tend to think there's more to this story than you're letting on. But here in Las Vegas, casinos are legally more like private clubs that can ban people for any reason they want to, as long as it's not discriminatory. And so if like let's say that you were just habitually a complainer, yeah, they could ban you. And if you came to my casino all the time and were hassling the staff with too many complaints, we would warn you the first time. But yeah, they can do that.
Yeah, they'll always warn you first. Also, too, if you're complaining but you're being aggressive or threatening,
Hmm.
that can get you banned as well.
Yeah, casinos don't like rude players, and I think that they can. I think that they keep comments in their notes about players, like abusive to the staff, things like that.
Yep.
So
Yep, they
yeah,
do keep those notes.
yeah, and they should.
How are we doing on time?
Well,
We
it
are
looks
over.
like yeah. Okay, well, so this, by the way, is the winter solstice. This is the shortest day of the year for the northern hemisphere. So happy
Woohoo.
winter solstice, Heather.
Happy winter solstice. Every day from here gets brighter
And longer. You're
and
absolutely right.
longer.
So that's a good way of looking at it. Um, I like to get away this time of year. So hopefully I can get somewhere nice and warm sometime in January.
Fingers crossed it's like something nice like Hawaii.
Yep, Hawaii or somewhere in the coast of Mexico, Costa Rica, something like that.
Cool. So if you guys asked a question and we did not get to it, please come back the next time and make sure you put in your question early. The earlier your question gets in, the more likely it is we will be able to get to it and answer
Yep.
it. So
Yep.
when is the next time?
Okay, let me get out my 2024 calendar.
Oh, I don't have my 2024 calendar. Okay, this is going to be fun.
Okay.
I need to go grocery shopping and get my new calendar.
How about January 4th?
Yep, January 4th looks good to me.
Okay.
Cool.
So until then, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, festive Festivus. Um, uh, have a good Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. I hope that you enjoy it and maybe are come away a little bit enlightened, something like that. And let's try to keep the the wasteful spending to a minimum, and don't keep everything in moderation.
We hope you have a good holiday season and a happy new year. And share with us on the next time we're here what your New Year's resolutions are. That'd be interesting.
I
Do you know
never
what you never make any?
No, I would like to think that if I detect a personal flaw, that I should just change it immediately.
Okay, fair enough. Until
But other
next
people
time.
are, other people, I'd be interested to hear what other people do.
Definitely. Okay, so we will see you guys later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So jealous.
All right.